They say the dinner table is where love breathes, where laughter echoes through walls, where stories weave generations together. But not every dinner ends in warmth. Sometimes, what gathers around the table isn't family, it's something darker, something that feeds on silence, secrets, and the things we refuse to say out loud. Tonight, you're invited to witness the 3 most creepy family dinner horror stories. These are just tales to chill your spine. They're reflections of the hidden truths we bury under polite smiles and clinking glasses. Because every scream, every whisper, every haunting echo around these tables hides a lesson about the soul, lessons about truth, time, forgiveness, and faith. And even in the deepest horror, there's light waiting to be found. The Darnells looked like perfection itself. A beautiful family living in a house that gleamed like a dream, fresh paint, trimmed hedges, and a front door that always smelled of lavender. Every Sunday, they hosted dinner, a ritual of roast chicken, polished silverware, and practiced laughter. Neighbors envied their grace, the way they seemed so in sync, so untouchable. But what no one saw was how rehearsed their happiness was. Every smile was a mask, every joke a cover-up. Because the Darnells were haunted long before that night. Haunted by the daughter, they never spoke of the one who died in a fire that no one dared mention again. On the anniversary of her death, thunder rolled over the house as they sat down to eat. Rain pounded the windows, and lightning flashed through the curtains. The mother lifted her glass to toast, her hand trembling. The father avoided her eyes. The children sat quietly, their forks untouched. Then, as lightning lit the room once more, they saw her, a pale figure sitting at the far end of the table. She was small, maybe 12, with soot-stained hands and eyes as empty as moonlight. "Who's that?" the youngest whispered, his voice thin with fear. No one answered. The mother gasped, her glass slipping and shattering across the floor. The girl's voice cracked the silence. "You forgot me." Her words dripped with sorrow more than anger. The candles flickered violently. The father stood up, shaking his head. "This isn't real." But it was real. The air turned to smoke, thick and suffocating. The family screamed, stumbling toward the door, but the fire had returned, not of flame, but of memory. It was the night they'd tried to erase, burning before them again. The ghostly girl's tears hissed against the flames as she cried, "You said we'd always eat together." When the neighbors arrived the next morning, the house stood quiet. The food was still warm. The chairs were pushed back, as though the family had just stood to leave. But no one was there. The only sound was the faint clinking of silverware against porcelain, echoing from somewhere unseen. They said the Darnells had finally been reunited with the daughter they'd buried in silence. But perhaps, what really happened was that truth had finally come to dinner. Their story isn't just about a haunting, it's about the things we hide from ourselves. We wear smiles like armor, pretending to be whole when inside, we're fractured. We say, "I'm fine," when we're breaking. We erase what hurts because the world rewards appearances, not honesty. But lies don't disappear, they rot in the dark corners of the heart until they return, demanding to be felt. The Darnells were destroyed not by a ghost, but by denial. How many of us do the same? We sit across from loved ones, nodding, pretending, holding in grief, guilt, or shame. We hide from truth, as if it's the monster in the room. But the truth doesn't seek to hurt us, it seeks to free us. Pain unacknowledged becomes poison, but when faced, it becomes healing. The Darnells' pale daughter was the embodiment of what they denied. Love lost, memories suppressed, forgiveness unspoken. And when she appeared, she wasn't seeking vengeance, she was seeking recognition. She wanted to be remembered. She wanted to be real again. If you've ever swallowed your feelings just to keep peace, if you've ever smiled when your heart was aching, you understand their curse. Pretending keeps us safe for a moment, but honesty keeps us alive. To be real is to be vulnerable. And that vulnerability is where love begins. The most terrifying ghosts aren't those who appear in the night. They raid the parts of ourselves we refuse to face. When we lock away truth, it doesn't die, it waits, silently, until we are ready to listen. The second story takes us to a quiet home on the outskirts of town, a place where time itself seemed to pause. A father sat alone at his table each evening, setting an extra plate for his son who never came. Years passed. The son, consumed by ambition, told himself he'd visit soon, call tomorrow, maybe next month. But time is cruel, that wait slips through our fingers faster than we notice. One cold evening, After years of distance, guilt finally pulled him back home. As he stepped inside, he saw the table set beautifully. Candles flickered softly, and food lay steaming, untouched. He called out. No answer. Then he saw his father seated at the table, his hands folded, eyes closed, a faint smile frozen on his lips. The plate in front of him was full, the wine untouched. The son fell to his knees, tears spilling onto the tablecloth. He realized the man had been waiting all this time, hoping, forgiving, believing his son would come. In that silence, the candles flickered, and a faint whisper brushed his ear. I kept dinner warm for you. He felt warmth wrap around him, like forgiveness itself, before the air stilled again. The food turned cold, and the house felt heavier. The horror of that story isn't in death, it's in regret. It's in the way we take love for granted, assuming it will always wait for us. We rush through life chasing things that fade, forgetting that the people who love us won't always be there. The son learned too late that no amount of success could fill the empty chair of someone gone. Love demands presence, not perfection. We're all guilty of thinking there will be another day to say I love you, or I'm sorry, or simply to show up. But time doesn't owe us that luxury. The third story begins in laughter, but ends in screams. A large family gathered for their weekly dinner, their table heavy with food, but also with tension. Insults disguised as jokes, resentment hidden behind forced smiles. Every word dripped with bitterness. The mother tried to calm them, but the arguments grew sharper until something strange began to happen. The plates, fine porcelain ones that had belonged to their grandmother, started to hum, faint at first, then louder. The family froze. The hum turned to whispers, muffled, eerie voices repeating their words back to them. You're worthless. I hate you. You'll never change. Each voice sounded familiar, like an echo of what they had said moments before. One by one, the family members tried to leave, but the doors wouldn't open. The lights flickered, the whispers grew into shrieks, and then silence. The neighbors found the house empty, the food untouched, the plates shattered on the floor. They say if you listen closely at night, you can still hear voices through the walls, repeating the last cruel words ever spoken in that house. The horror in their story was not supernatural, it was human. Words have power, they can heal or they can haunt. Every cruel sentence we speak stays somewhere in the hearts of those who hear it. Sometimes it's not ghosts that destroy families, it's unkindness. The plates whisper, because words linger. They don't disappear after they're spoken. They settle in the air, in the soul, shaping the world around us. That family was devoured by their own voices, trapped by their own hatred. In the quiet aftermath of their screams lies a message we all need to hear. Kindness costs nothing, but cruelty can cost everything. Speak gently to those you love, even when you're angry, even when you feel unheard. You never know which words will be your last, or which ones will echo long after you're gone. And then there's the tale of the poor family who had nothing left but faith. It was a cold winter's night when a frail old man knocked on their door, shivering, asking for food. They had barely enough to feed themselves. But the mother smiled, ushered him in, and said, "You'll eat with us tonight." They split their last loaf of bread, their final bowl of soup. The old man bowed his head, blessing them before the night ended. When they woke the next morning, he was gone, but their table overflowed. The soup pot refilled itself, the bread multiplied, and warmth spread through the house like sunlight after years of frost. Some say it was an angel. Others say it was God testing their hearts. But, whatever the truth, it reminds us that compassion never leaves empty hands. When we give selflessly, even in our darkest hours, the universe answers in ways beyond logic. In a world so focused on taking, generosity becomes the true miracle. And then there was the mother who set a chair every year for her missing son. He had vanished on his way home one stormy night. She never gave up, never stopped waiting. Then, one evening, decades later, she saw him sitting there, smiling faintly. Her heart leapt. "You're home," she whispered. He said nothing. His eyes were cold, his hands pale. She ran to embrace him, but when she touched him, the air froze. He faded like smoke, leaving the chair empty once more. She fell to her knees, whispering his name through tears, realizing that hope, when bound by denial, can become torment. Sometimes love means letting go, even when it hurts more than anything. There was another family who stopped saying grace. Life was good, food was plenty, and they thought faith was no longer necessary. One night, They laughed and ate without a single word of gratitude. But as midnight came, the food turned black, the air soured, and one by one the lights went out. They woke in terror to find everything spoiled, their home filled with the stench of decay. Gratitude isn't just a ritual, it's protection. When we stop giving thanks, we open doors to emptiness. A lonely grandmother once prepared dinner for her children who promised to visit. She waited all night, candles burning low. They never came. As the clock struck 12, she whispered, "At least the shadows stayed." When her family finally arrived days later, they found her at the table, a faint smile on her face, the candles long melted. Her shadow was still on the wall, seated beside her. The tragedy wasn't her death, was their absence. Love dies not with distance, but with neglect. And lastly, there was the night the world went dark. A family huddled together as wind howled and shadows scraped the walls. They were terrified, but instead of running, they held hands and prayed. The night passed, and in the morning, they found claw marks on the door, but they were safe. Their fear didn't disappear, but faith gave them the strength to face it. Each of these stories, wrapped in fear and sorrow, carries a pulse of truth that beats quietly beneath the horror. Love, honesty, compassion, gratitude, and faith. These are what keep the darkness away. The monsters we fear most don't always live under beds or in forests. They live in the spaces between us, in the words we don't say, the love we withhold, the truths we avoid. But the light is always within reach. All it takes is one act of kindness, one prayer, one truth spoken aloud to push the shadows back. So, if you find yourself sitting at your own dinner table tonight, look around, say the words you've been holding. Forgive someone. Be thankful. Because every shared meal is more than food, it's a promise, a moment to connect before time steals the chance away. And if you listen closely, past the whispers of fear, you'll hear something soft and steady, the sound of love, eternal and unbroken, waiting for you to invite it in.